Hello there and welcome back to the Inner Sanctum, the place where I show you all of my tricks while I pull them off live right in front of you. Sorry, I got some stuck in my tongue while speaking. So yeah, we're gonna be coming back to Harrison Mixbus after the ruckus attempt last week, but everything is now properly ironed out, everything's working correctly, and you should be hearing my voice correctly, and once I press play on the project, you're gonna be blasted by the project we're gonna be working on. So tonight is gonna be, I'm gonna try to re-explain everything that I tried to do last week. Because it simply didn't work. For those of you who don't know, and thankfully you didn't know, something went wrong with the live stream, so the only thing you could hear was actually my microphone, not even his or the output of the software. Speaking of his, let me introduce you to Sonia Brave and I get a sense of beautiful Terwega Mini, who is saying hello to Girls and the Boys.
Hello, Girls and Boys. How's it going? I'm very glad to be back, and it's great to have you here as well. So yeah, we're gonna have to backtrack a tiny bit because of that hiccup last time around, but we should be up and running in no time and back to where we left it.
Yes. So today, let's get started with the whole thing. So let's get into it. Welcome back to Harrison Mixbus. In front of us, we got the project that we're gonna keep using to mix this track. First and foremost, and as usual, we're gonna play the track from start to finish, and then I'm gonna explain to you what happened last week, and well, we're gonna get introduced to what we're gonna be doing tonight. So here we go from the top. Okay, so what do you think?
Even though we're still talking about super early stages of the mix, I think that it's already delivering a good amount of punch. I like that.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, the balance. I know that you were doing a few moves even throughout this playback on the balance, but I think it's basically all there. I think the most of the elements are can be heard correctly. Nothing kind of jumping out in a way that doesn't necessarily should.
Yeah.
Some of the voices were kind of out of balance. You pushed a few while we were listening to it, and now I think actually it's a very good basis to work upon to get to the rest of the mix.
Yes. Let's start together. So let's get started with the whole mixing process. First and foremost, let me check something with the analog summing. So let me show you. Right now, what you got in front of you, can you move my screen out? Get rid of the overlays. Okay. What you got in front of you is the controls of my software that controls my interface. Right now, this is the Antelope Audio, discrete 8, and we're outputting 8 stems out of the DAW. I realized that something went wrong, and one of the stems is not going through. So I'm gonna check that out right now. So is this guy over here? Is the Mo dry? Let's see. Yes, no sound. Why is that? Let me check. I'm gonna remove the output of the Mo out of the lid, and I'm gonna send it now to the master. Let's see if it sounds, if it's played. Yeah, it's working. Let me get to a proper section in which the Mo is actually playing much more musical sections. Let's see. Here we go. Done. Let me explain what happened. The thing is that when you're rocking analog gear, sometimes they simply go to sleep while being on. And since I turned them on quite early before going live, the compressor that is being is affecting this actual stem went to sleep. So now it's playing. Let me confirm. Yeah, it's working. Now, speaking of the whole analog summing rig, let me give you a quick rundown on how this setup is working. First, let's begin with the software. Everything you got here, I'm gonna remove the buses for now. All of my channel strips are actually being fed, as you can see, to a different bus on the Mixbus environment. So I got my drums, my kick and bass, my music out, effects out, and lead out, okay? So depending on what kind of instrument I'm dealing with or what kind of track I'm going to be working with, I divide them or spread them across different outputs of my stems. Now, all of those are going to be found over here on the Mixbus section. All of the white faders are the ones that contains the actual, are the ones that are feeding out of Mixbus to the analog summing system. You got here the compressor, the EQ, and the fader, which is part of our traditional Mixbus sequence. But instead of having them on or set to master fader, it's being fed or it's been outputted, if I put it correctly, to this guy over here. This is the output that we're working with right now. This is the physical output of the interface. And that takes us to the analog world. Look at this. I'm going to turn on the camera, so keep it on my feed.
Okay.
And I'm going to switch. Yeah, perfect. Now it's working. Look at this. Okay, over here we got the analog system. And this is the interface that I was mentioning. But now, this is the D-Box, which is my monitoring system. You see me pressing buttons on this guy, basically every time that I press play. But everything is outputted through the interface into this rack. So, first and foremost, kick and bass are being fed first into my pull fake over here, which is a Clark technique, recreation of, or an attempt, if I better put it, of a pull tech equalizer. It's actually great sounding. The only difference and the problem with it, and why I call it a pull fake, is because the high band, the width of the band itself is super narrow. Even if you push it all the way to the highest opening, the band itself is narrower than the closest
In a bull tech.
on an actual pull tech.
Yeah.
So it gives you a very pointy high end, which is great for kicks and bass. So that's why we're feeding both kick and bass together into this guy first. Sorry, not first. This is second, because first we hit kick and bass into the compressor over here. This is the Bluey by Black Lion Audio, fantastic sounding compressor. I love it. These are the parameters. I simply decided to set it like that, and every mix that I work on, it's being affected by this particular setup. So if you want to copy it loose, please do. It's fantastic. It simply works. And it's also been parallelly mixed, so it's not fully wet. And then we hit the pull fake, right? Then we get our drums. All of the drums are being fed to this guy, the drummer 1978, which is controlling. It's not a compressor, but it's adding tons of distortion. But I have it once again in a parallel way. So we're adding half of the compression and overly distorted sound of to the drums, and that's fed into the summing bus. More on that later. Then we got the music, which I usually is passing through. It's hard pass to that guy. It's hardwired to this guy, and this is the all-powerful ultraviolet by SSL, which is a very good and powerful equalizer, stereo equalizer. And from there it goes into the summing bus. Then we got this guy, which is the one that is controlling the EQ on my mixes. But since we're working with Mixbus, I don't see the need of using this guy right now. And this compressor over here is what I usually use as well for my stereo bus compression, right? Now the lead channel is the one that was giving us trouble. Is hitting first the LA2A, Lean2A, which is a very good clone of the LA2A. Fantastic sounding, very warm tone, and very good on vocals. And from here we're hitting this Trident EQ, which is adding a little bit of edge to the tone of the leads. I usually use this bus to control vocals, lead guitars, and everything that is not bass or drums or music. Okay? And you might be asking where everything is being fed to. It's being fed to the D-Box again. Here is where everything is summed up, and from here we are outputting into my stereo my stereo rig, my stereo master bus, which is affected by this color palette. Yeah, that's the name. And we are adding saturation and distortion, harmonic distortion to be precise. And it's been on since the beginning. I never changed most of these parameters because I like to mix to this compression and this kind of equalization as well. From here, everything is being summed by or recorded by the powerful Convert AD by Dangerous Music, and we're adding a little bit of the transformer sound. So that would be it.
Just that, no more.
Just that, just that. So what do you think?
Okay, so let me.
Kind of complex, right?
I think your shot became mine for some reason.
Your shot? No, this is my shot. It should be my shot.
That's you now.
It should be. I don't know. You tell me.
That's you now.
Yeah,
Now this is me.
Yeah.
Okay, no, it's correct. I don't know. Something in between. I think this whole hybrid system is actually very interesting because in the end, these boxes they deliver in a way that the plugins only attempt to. Some of them get very close, but still is not the same.
No, it is
And
not.
the sound that you can get out of this stuff is simply it speaks for itself because no work has been done to the sound,
No.
and just by running through all of this, it's already sounding pretty good.
Exactly. So, just a quick reminder of what we tried to show you last week. I already applied a little bit of EQ on the master bus and the compression as well. So nothing fancy, nothing special. That's it. So now it's time to rock and roll with the mix today. My plan for today, first and foremost, even though we got a very balanced mix already, I'm not happy. I'm not confident that I could begin making moves on my EQs yet. So it's something that I would recommend you to do as well. Before you start to mess around with EQs, compression, and all sorts of effects, please make sure that the music is already moving you as it is. Okay? So let's begin from there. I'm going to press play again, and let's see how it feels.
Where secrets sleep, the road is closed. It's like defiled, the black and veil that shoots the wild. Through the hollow winds, the echoes call. The fragile world
feels a little bit loose, don't you think?
Yeah.
It's not tight enough. So I'm gonna begin from the very starting point, and I'm gonna readdress the balance again. We're gonna be trying something special today. This thing with the master converter, you can actually clip it, and believe it or not, it sounds better the harder you hit it. Why is that? Well, reasons. But one of those reasons is that it creates an extra harmonic. This is a very high-end converter, so it's actually expecting you to slam it. Actually, some mastering houses, and depending on the genre of music, it's actually provides better sound, believe it or not.
Yep.
So this being kind of electronic music sounding and also a little bit punchy, I think it would be greatly benefited by adding a little bit of the crunchiness coming out of the converter. There are several ways to do it. One of them is, of course, well, simply boosting the output of everything, feeding a much more hotter signal into it. But we can also change the calibration here. First, I'm gonna make a new balance on the music. It's very tiny pushes because certain elements feel a little bit kind of louder than they should. So I'm gonna begin from the top. Ready?
Yep.
Here we go. Now it feels a little bit more put together, at least in this section, because what happened was that I had my pads over here and where everything that was music, sorry, this section over here. Those guys are playing the harmony in this particular part of the song, and they were very quiet in comparison to the rest, so it felt a little bit empty. Now we got them going, I feel that this section is kind of covered. Now I'm gonna go to a different section because this pad only plays at the beginning. So I'm gonna take a look at now to this part over here. Marker 2. Let's see, and it's gonna be pad 2. Here we go.
But in the dark, a whisper sings of broken chains and wounded wings. As the dark defies the shadow blue, the terror lies, the blackened veil. Beneath the sky, where the shadows creep, a whispered curse, where secrets sleep. The moon is closed, it's like defiled. The blackened veil consumes the wild. Through the hollow winds, the echoes call. The fragile world begins to fall. The stars are dim, their stories pale. Lost behind the blackened veil. We're 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 lost behind the blackened veil.
Okay, it feels now much put together, right?
Yeah. Yes.
The same happened in this section. The output of the harmonic elements of the track was a little bit too low in volume, so it felt that the mid-range was missing. Now we kind of made it much more present and much more louder, and it feels more robust. Still, I'm not necessarily happy with the mix, but now I feel much more confident to push faders and twist knobs. Now, we're gonna do the fun part. We're gonna be actually pushing the converter harder. How are we gonna do this? First and foremost, I already made sure that my mix is not clipping and I'm hitting my mark, which is 14 lofts, being the loudest I will go. And I always try to give myself 1 or 2 extra dBs of range. So we're aiming already calibrated here, if I recall correctly. Let me see. My calibration is we're hitting, when it comes to the BU, we're hitting minus 14 dBs. So whenever it's 0, it's going to be minus 14 dBs. So I like to keep my loudest point probably here around what could be minus 1 or minus 15 in this case. Okay. Why? Because these will give the mastering engineer control over the mix in a way that will allow him to push it slightly louder or quieter, keeping range for dynamic range. Okay, but now, since we need to punch harder this guy, we need to either increase the output of our mix, which is the first thing that I'm going to try. Here on the D box, I'm going to turn on my camera again, so you'll see every single one of my moves. Let's turn it on. Where is it? Disappeared. Beautiful. Wherever. Let me see. Yeah, it's not appearing. So let me check one more try before. Yeah, it's no longer appearing. What the hell happened? Whatever. Okay, well, you can actually push it with the control, the one on top. Okay, I'm gonna be working with this, and the D box actually has an output over here that will allow me. Don't you have another shot? A shot? I think it's also another one from the main camera.
Yes.
Yeah. So while he's dealing with that, you'll see that the D box over here has a master control for the output. Perfect. This knob over here. I have it already kind of close to the edge. I will see if by cranking it up all the way up, we can get a much more louder sound. Here we go. And I'm gonna be very mindful of keeping my eye on the controller here. And one more thing, the monitoring system. And one more thing, I will use the sum channel strip, which is what is bringing everything back to the mixing desk, to the mixing realm, to control the output, hitting the actual output of the bus, of the mixing. Here we go. And of course, I'm gonna go to a loud sig section because that's basically not loud at all. So I think it's gonna be probably somewhere.
A spark defies the shadow scale to tear apart the blackened veil, the blackened veil, the blackened veil, the blackened veil. A spark defies the shadow scale.
Okay, it's kind of working, but being frank, we are missing a lot of juice. So what I'm gonna do is the following. I'm gonna dog down the output of these guys. There is, allegedly. Now it is. And I'm gonna change the calibration of my converter. Right now I have it basically expecting unity from everything into it. I'm gonna make it expect a louder signal. Oh, no, I'm gonna make it much more sensible, so it's gonna be hit harder. But I think it's too much. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to the in between. That should give us a much more louder take. Here we go.
A spark defies the shadow scale to tear apart the blackened veil, the blackened veil, the blackened veil, the blackened veil.
How about that?
Okay.
Could you hear the difference?
Yeah.
Insane, right?
Yeah, it's a lot more robust.
crunchier.
Yeah, the kick got a thump to it now that
Yeah,
it's hitting harder.
yeah,
It feels more solid.
more solid and kind of better compressed, right?
Yep.
Why is that? First, let me show you the screen. You saw that we were actually keeping my fader, the summing fader at Unity, we were clipping, we were overloading. So I had to compensate and I had to dog down the volume dramatically. Not dramatically, it's not that much. Let me show you on Mixbus. It's like 3 dBs. So it's a lot, but it's not that much. And now we got the benefit of the crunchiness of the converter. Let's see once again.
A sparky fight. The shadow scale to tear apart the blackened veil. The blackened veil. The blackened veil. The blackened veil. The blackened.
Okay, let me explain what's going on here. First, I set my meters to show me the peak. So instead of being resetted every single time, now it's keeping a light on the highest point in volume for the entirety of the sum. If I press play again, you'll see that we are. Oh, by the way, we're using the non-zoomed in version. I'm gonna reset the peak, and this is important because we're gonna be trying to see how much we're adding of actual clipping or converter clipping out of the mix. Here we go.
A sparky fight. The shadow scale to tear apart the blackened veil. The blackened veil. The blackened veil.
Very good. This, I didn't change anything in the sound, okay? But with this, we could see now that we have plenty of dynamic range still because the track is moving. We don't have the entire thing always frozen in time, but we are actually reaching points on which the converter is actually clipping. How do we know? Because we got the red lights here. The thing is this. Let me show you my input here. What is that, Thiago?
I don't know what you're referring to.
There should be a red light when you clip.
Oh yes, there's none.
And what happens on the other side? Master Bus.
None as well.
None. What kind of sorcery is that? It's called clip guard. And it's one of the things that this device does. Don't know how they do it, but it clips here, but it doesn't clip on the computer.
That's wizardry.
It's wizardry of the higher sort. I don't know exactly how that works. But we got a much more punchier sounding mix. Why? Just by cranking up the input of our converter. Very important. I don't do this very often. I only do it depending on the kind of music we're rocking. Because if we're mixing, for example, a very tender ballad, it will be too much.
Yeah.
Because we would ruin the beauty of it, right? The emotional impact by pushing it too hard. But this being a hard-hitting, don't know what kind of music this is,
Yeah.
it requires the extra beefiness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it did benefit from it.
Yeah, 100%. It's very similar to a limiter, actually. Now, let's go back to business. Let's begin with the first section. At this point, now, I finally feel that I can begin messing around with my sound. So, let's do it. Here we go. Even this section feels better. Now, let's begin. I'm gonna be adding, let's work on the kick and the drums. So for this, how to do it? First, let's get an idea of what kind of sound we're going to be dealing with when it comes to the kick. I don't know about you, Diego, but it feels like somebody designed the sound of the kick to be extremely dependent to the sound of the bass.
It's almost like that happened.
Yeah, right. Because as soon as I brought, because by its own, it sounds very lame.
Yeah, but when the bass comes in,
Super tight, right? Super tight. So that's without trying to sound like a prick. That's proper production skills,
It was Tuesday.
of course. No, it was Wednesday. So no, but look, it's important to keep that in mind because we won't be able, and of course, it's never recommended to mix music in solo. It's a very bad move. So what you should do is mix in context. Right now, I'm gonna first apply a little bit of EQ on the kick because there is a little bit of a nose, should I say, that is kind of annoying, and the kick itself is not necessarily that punchy. So I'm gonna boost it. Let's do it. Let me go to the edit section first, and we create a proper cycle that it's right here. Perfect. That's where we wanna be. Let's do it. So for this, I'm gonna be using, of course, exclusively the EQs on Harrison Mixbus, and in order to control them, I'm gonna be using the UF8, which I love. And as you can see now, if I go here, EQ, now look at this. Wow! So good. So let's do it. Wow. Okay, here we go. Wow, right? Now it's banging.
that's already a big freaking
Huge
difference.
push. Let me explain. I simply look for the, once again, testament to how powerful the Harrison Mixbus equalizer is. I simply look for the good sounding frequency, which in this case end up being 190 hertz allegedly, and I boosted to taste. Because even when I went nuts, it already gave me that good sounding kick. The issue was that it was way too much, not of my liking. So now I'm gonna play a little bit of the filter because it's a little bit rumbly still. Here we go. So pay attention to the bass now. Let's see once again. Okay, we got a conundrum here. This is a big kick,
It is.
super subby. I had to go to the subwoofer to hear it. The effect of the kick of the filter, because the kick is of course going through the other monitoring setups. The issue is that this is very low ending, and that's creating extra punch, adding weight to the track, and making it feel more like dancey. That big problem. It's also adding plenty of rumble, and also it's filling up a lot of my stereo bus
Mm.
because it's plenty of energy.
Yeah.
So here's the big one. If I cut it off too much, we're gonna lose plenty of the punchiness. But if I open it up too much, we're gonna get extra rumble. So what to do? In this case, I think I'm gonna back off what I did on my lows. A little bit, tiny. And I'm gonna go mono. Let's see. What do you think?
I think this is a better balance. But what if you push a little bit more of what you already pushed in the lows, not the filter, to try
Yeah.
to compensate a little bit?
There is a little bit of extra mod that I don't like. Before I push that again, I'm gonna attack the mid lows. Let's see if that works. I'm gonna be using this band over here. Okay, so let's see. Okay, did you like it?
Yes, way more focused.
It's way more focused. But let's see if now I can add a little bit of the low end that I pushed before. Here we go. Fantastic, right?
No, pretty cool because now it's still kind of heavy hitting and ballsy, but a lot cleaner.
Yeah, a lot cleaner. That would be a way to describe it. Now I'm gonna play a little bit of compression. Good point. Should I boost? Let's see if we can add a little bit of attack. I'm gonna go for the mid highs, or even the highs. Again. You know what? The kick is so low that the high band is barely touching it. I'm gonna reset it, and I'm gonna try with the mid highs. These over here. So here we go. How about that?
Like it. A little bit more definition
Yeah, it's definition.
because it was subtle. Now on the highs it was subtle, but it did push it a little bit.
Yes. So now I'm gonna go for my compressor, and this is the interesting one. I'm gonna try to compress it with the EQ being first. Okay, so I'm gonna put it after the EQ. Why? It might be beneficial because my plan is to get enhance what I got because I'm gonna pretend that this is the sound of the recording. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm gonna be making it a little bit more attacky.
Okay.
Could it work? Will it work? Who knows? So of course, slow attack, slowest, the fastest release. We want transients, and we're gonna use probably the compressor, different way to engage the compression. So let's see. course, I'm effing around, but it's already doing it.
Yeah. There it is.
How would you describe it?
It's fatter.
It's fatter, but also pay attention to the mid-range. You'll see that it's starting to get a bit more condensed. I'm going to be playing with the emphasis knob, which adds wherever, but where it does, it's always great. Here we go. Love it.
Tight.
Tight is the word. Now let me explain what happened. You can see that I'm barely compressing the signal, even though it looks terrible here. It's just catching the transients. It's just catching the transients because this is the actual gain reduction display. We're barely compressing. I didn't mess with the ratio because it was working. It's 10, whatever that means. And of course, by opening up the compressor to be super slow in the attack and making the release super fast, we're getting a snappy, super snappy transient-driven sound. Mm-hmm. And also, my plan for the compressor after this is by boosting the EQ, boosting the attack and the low end of the EQ. With the EQ, those would be the elements that would trigger the compression. But by having a super slow compressor, when it comes to attack, those, even though they're triggering the attack, or they're triggering the compressor, they pass through and then they're compressed. But it's based on two signals, not in the moddiness.
Yeah, get you.
Makes sense?
Makes sense, yes.
A good trick. Now, in here is where we could add an extra EQ to the compress, to the kick. But I would rather go first to the Mariana, which is our bass sound, and let's play around with it first. Because again, as I said before, it's very they're working in tandem. What would I do? I think I'm gonna compress Mariana first, and I'm gonna then EQ it.
Can you get that channel to be a little bit further to the left?
Yes, thank you for reminding me.
Yes, thank you.
Here we go. This is what we get, and we're gonna be compressing first. Could you hear?
Yeah, and this one you're actually going a little bit more aggressive.
But it's starting to vibe.
Yeah.
I don't know if it makes sense to you because it's starting to be more. I can hear now the percussiveness without making the sound of the synthesizer louder. Why? Once again, we're using the compressor to push the transients. Good. Now let's see the EQ. In this case, I'm gonna go the opposite. I'm gonna be compressing and then EQing. Why? Because there are not that many. Since this is a synthesizer, the dynamics are gonna be basically the same. It's not as varied as it would be with a drum machine, because in this case, I actually, if I recall correctly, I programmed it using the same velocity on the here in the Moog, or the Mariana, okay, which is a Moog, same thing. But anyway, whatever. First, let's filter the crap out of it because we're adding plenty of mud. Here we go. feel it?
Yeah, no, and actually you went super aggressive with the low cut,
Yeah.
but I think I was thinking here because it makes the song is very dense in the low end because
Yeah.
the kick is super low endy. You got two basses going on, so I suppose you can cut kind of aggressively and still get something that makes sense because low end is very covered.
Yeah, but I'm trying to keep my subs alive
Mm-hmm.
because that's the trick. This has plenty of sub information. So if we go to berserk on the lows, we're gonna remove the what makes this kind of music sound the way it does.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, not necessarily happy, but not necessarily angry with it. I also think that there is a bit of nose there that is kind of annoying. So let's begin with it. I'm gonna be using the EQ once again, and let's play around with it. I'm gonna be looking or chasing that particular frequency using this guy over here. Here we go. How about that?
No, it's considerably cleaner, and I even think that given the cleanness now, it could be a little bit higher. Like we can push it a little bit.
Yeah, in volume now it can be a little bit more present in the mix. Yes, let's try that out. And also makes me think that I should be getting ready for the bass, the other bass as well, the one that is sampled. Here we go. I'm gonna try to find a better spot for the bass now. Okay, I messed around a little bit with the other bass. I pushed the gain or the trim pot a little bit hotter, so we got a much more present sound, and played around with the fader, trying to find the proper positioning. Also work with my filter, cutting out a little bit of the low end. But now I think I need to address the stereo field now, because I feel that my hi-hats are getting in the way. So let's see. Let's check first how much of what kind of files we're getting. We're dealing with because yes, they are stereo, but not necessarily stereo. So here we go. Let's push hi-hats drummer position, of course, somewhere like this, and we'll see. Let's play around with this. Way better, right?
Yeah.
It opened up the whole thing. Now let's take a look at there's a percussion that I like. It's not a percussion, it's kind of like a D drums, I think. Is D drums? It isn't that. Look at that. Sorry for shouting. So, here, it sounds like this. By its own, it's very lame. But once you bring it in, it's very cool because it's actually playing in tandem with the main beat.
Yeah, but I think that guy's adding quite a lot of rumble.
Yes, exactly. Look at that. Look at you, Tony Maserati. I'm gonna be filtering the crap out of this guy because it's adding a little bit of extra low end that we don't necessarily need. So to taste. Okay, now we got a much better and open-ended stereo field, and it's creating the space for the kick and the bass to go through. I'm gonna work now once again on the bass. So we're gonna be applying the EQ. Now, what's gonna be the point? First, there is a little bit of an extra nose that I don't like. Truly, truly annoying. It sounds like this. Man, even by its own, nosy, right?
Yeah.
It almost feels like it's a member. So let's see. Let's figure out where that frequency lies. That could be potentially our victim. Sorry, the problem. Let's see. I'm gonna cut it as it goes. Yes, it worked. And Kenneth here is saying, mix the tracks like you're mixing the course of life with passion and purpose. Actually, I like what you said. Makes total sense. Because it might feel a little bit esoteric. No, he's right. It gotta feel like you're actually kind of merging everything together. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
No, it does. And I think it's kind of taking into account the main purpose of music.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily... The clinical approach to this, of course, is going to be important at times, but still, it's supposed to be enjoyment.
Enjoyment,
Yeah.
exactly. And when you see me bobbing my head, it's because I'm trying to enjoy what I'm doing. For real, because if you're not vibing to the track that you're working on, it's going to fail. It's going to end up sounding terribly. Now, let me explain what happened here. Over here, as I said, my point was to hit that particular nosy frequency that was getting in the way of the sound, of the mix, not the bass itself. And just by cutting that guy. And it was like night and day, right?
Yeah, it was.
Let's test it again. I'm going to be playing it with the EQ inserted and then I'm going to remove it. When I inserted, it felt heavier, right?
Yep. Puncher.
Punchier. Pay attention to the sound of the kick and the bass together. Now that we got this going, I might apply compression to this bass, but I don't know because it feels very compressed already. And I don't see the point. But let's see, maybe I could boost a little bit the attack once again of the bass. So once again, the same technique, slow and fast. And we're gonna go for, I'm gonna keep the leveler, which is slightly gentler. So, gratuitous. It worked. Did you like it?
I actually did, because it is kind of like a noticeably compressed sound, but I think that the track allows for it. It's working.
Yes, it's working, and it's because I want to get the tune to cut through better. Because sometimes it's better just to, well, look, when mixing you have to understand the nature of each of the sounds you're working on. Because whenever you want, for example, to make something more present, like this instrument, for example, your instinct is going to tell you, just make it louder. Yeah, but making it louder brings a lot of problems, such as it masquerades more instruments. If you understand what it's actually doing, the nature of the instrument, or the sound rather, you can attack and boost up just the parts that you need out of that instrument for it to feel present in the mix. In this case, it's just the notes. I don't want to get the release of the notes. That's why I decided to try using the compressor in a way that would push the attack of each note harder and louder without making the bass louder. Because I'm just pushing it. That's the point of a compressor. I don't know if that made sense.
It does indeed.
So very important. Now I'm gonna add a little bit of drive to this bass. Because how is it that we haven't used it yet?
And I think it's always awesome.
Yes, I'm just gonna turn it on and we're gonna enjoy. Look, without and then with it. Good.
It even became more present.
Yes.
Don't know
yes.
what it did exactly, but it
It's
was
due
more
to the
present.
distortion. It's the saturation. I only have a problem. It boosted the mid range. So we're gonna. I wanna keep what the drive is doing, but there is something on the mid range that it's kinda not as pleasant as before. So I'm gonna be working with my here the high band again, high mids, and let's see if we can actually find the problematic area. Here we go. F yeah. What do you think?
FES seems to be the general consensus.
Yeah, it's better, right? It's feeling much more condensed, but also kind of compact in a good way. Why? The saturation produced by the drive circuit added plenty of harmonics, and those harmonics create an extra layer of texture and frequencies, for lack of a better term, because I don't want to spend the entirety of the live stream explaining harmonics. In simple terms, it makes everything sound more richer in content, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that brings the good and the bad. Usually it's only the good. And in this case, it was so good that even the bad had to show up. And the way to deal with it was by changing a little bit the sound of the tone before being affected by the drive circuit. And it worked. Now, let's go to our almighty first parallel compression circuit, which is, let me see, sense. We're gonna be rocking the kick and bass, kick, snare, and bass. There is how it works. Easy. We go to our mixing area, Mixbus area. We got already here our kick and kick, snare, and bass. Man. And with this guy, we're gonna be sending kick, snare, and bass, but also kick and snare. I think for this guy, I'm gonna stick to kick and bass, being very frank. So what I'm gonna do is this. I'm gonna boost the little stuff out of those guys. So it's gonna go all the way up. Of course, kick and bass. Where is my bass? Here is my bass. Not bass. Mariana is the bass. And kick, snare, and bass. There it is. Already sending all the way to the top. Good. And from here, I'm gonna go to the mix bosses. Sorry, there's. And I'm gonna get this guy I don't know if it's visible. Yeah, it's visible, so no worries. I'm gonna make it more visible. And I will be adding this guy to taste, but here's the big one. We gotta come up with a huge compression here. So first, let's add compression. We'll go with something stupid. Why? Because this is parallel compressing. And I'm gonna go for limiter, the squashiest. I'm gonna point to presence or emphasis. This is by eyeballing it, okay? I will change this, of course.
You went nuts with the ratio as well.
Yeah, of course, because obviously. And from here, we're gonna now take a look at my saturation, which is they changed that. It is there, and we're gonna push it a little bit. Here we go, and I'm gonna be adding this effect little by little. This is parallel mixing. Yeah, times 2. Did you like it?
No, it was awesome. Yeah, well, that was
That was
completely
a mess.
off.
Yes.
No, it added quite a lot of balls to the kick. No, there's no other way to
Keeping
put
it classy.
Yeah, yeah.
No, but actually, yeah, it
It's
became
ballsy.
ballsier. It became
Yeah.
ballsier. Why?
Classic.
Yeah, why? It's because we're adding compression, not only to the sound of the kick and the bass. We're adding extra attack to the transient information. We're making it a little bit much more cut through. Make sense?
Yeah.
That's why we got, of course, a slightly louder signal. Don't be fooled by it, because if I go, let me show you the screen again. See how little this fader is, how tiny it is. I'm gonna back it off again, and see how much the entire track starts to feel much more robust and better put together. That's when you stop, because if you keep going, I'm gonna just do it for sake of exercising, and you'll see how ridiculously loud the kick and the bass will become. Awesome, right?
Yeah.
That's the power of parallel compression. I happen to be a huge fan of the technique, and believe it or not, it was one of the things that took me the longest to understand, because I couldn't grasp my head around the concept of compressing something and squashing it and making it sound horrible, just for it to be blended in, and all of a sudden, just like magic, it sounds better. Like, how? Why would that work? It works because if down to taste, as I did with this one, trying not to sound like a prick, if down to taste, you actually make everything feel punchier without making it louder. There's a slight bump in volume, of course, but it's so tiny that it simply adds more of the je ne sais quoi. Now, coming back to the compression, let's see how much has been compressed. It should be squashed. That was better.
Yeah.
That was better because
more
by
aggressive.
compressing more, yes, by being more aggressive, we're boosting even more the tech. And since we're compressing so much, as soon as the transient goes through, it's immediately squashed, but dramatically. Pushing only the tech. So good, right?
Yep.
Love
good.
it. Now, yeah, we have a few more minutes, so let's do one more thing before we go. I'm gonna apply now another layer of parallel compression, but now to the bass. But that's gonna be bass alone, no kick and bass. So selecting Mariana, I'm gonna go to my sense. In this case, I'm gonna turn it on my rear. In this case, I'm not gonna be using the boost, or I'm not gonna be bringing in the effect using my fader. I'm gonna do it by controlling the synth. Okay, in this case, I'd rather use let me go back to the mixer, my controller rather than that. So here is, which one am I rocking? Rear, over here, look at that, oh so good. So First, let's set up the rear. Usually have an 1176 inserted in this bad boy, but since we're rocking this guy, Mixbus, I'm gonna go for 1 second limiter. Die! Then slow.
Nuclear.
Yeah. In this case, I'm gonna go the opposite. Trying to get a little bit of the control the extra bumpy sections. And of course trying to compensate a little bit, even die harder and add a little bit of emphasis liberally, and of course in this case over distortion. Why not? Here we go. I'm gonna be sending the bass. If everything works according to the plan, we're gonna start to get a much more rounder sounding bass. Here we go. Wow, it's too much. Let me check the compressor. I'm gonna go even crazier on it, and let's see. So it worked.
It did.
But I had to do more than I thought. Why? Mixbus is very sensitive when it comes to the compressor is expecting a louder signal for it to be engaged, first and foremost. Okay, so I had to push quite a lot of my Monarch into the compressor, into the rear mixing fader or track for the compressor to get engaged. The issue is that as soon as I got something juicy happening, we already had a very loud signal. So I had to come back to the fader and find the sweet spot by rocking around the fader itself. So now we got a good sounding fader. Let's save the project and then save the queen, well, the king now. And we're gonna turn this into kick and bass. We're gonna save this guy. Sorry, misspelling. There it is. Here we go. So now the fan favorite, we're gonna make fun of ourselves. We're gonna be comparing the different stages of the mix so far. Starting from the very beginning, which was the gain stage, or the first attempt at gain staging, then the second one, which is gain stage plus stereo compression and stereo bus, EQ, stereo compression only, then stereo EQ, and then what we did today. So here we go, from the top.
with every step. We find the trail and cast aside the blackened veil. All the blackened veil blinds the day, steals the colors, blaze the way. In its embrace we lose our sight, dancing blind through endless night. But in the dark, a whisper sings of broken chains and bending wings. A spark defines the shadow scale to tear apart the blackened veil. 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 The blackened veil.
Nice. Huge improvement.
It
I
was.
think this was today was a monumental push forward. Like the tone, like the vibe, like what we did with the converter, hitting it harder. It's crunchier, but clean, right?
Yeah.
And balls here. Love it. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think it was indeed a monumental push. I think, of course, everything adds up to the result, but I think what was very impactful that was done here today was the work on the bass. I think the cleaning first and then the push with the parallel compression was very, very important.
Yeah.
Even seeing the difference in between this
And the previous.
scene and the previous ones, the presence of the bass, not loudness, the presence of the bass
Yeah.
is making a huge difference.
Gigantic difference. So all in all, there you have it. That's today's live stream. We're gonna keep doing this correctly now that we fixed the whole system. So stay tuned for next week because we're gonna be continuing with this mix. We're gonna be taking on from this particular point onwards. So if you want to know more about it, let me know in the comment section down below. And also, if you're new to Mixbus, stay tuned because we're gonna be releasing content around Mixbus, how to get you started with this particular software, which is fantastic. So with that being said, as every single time we meet you, if you like to support this channel, the best way to do it is by listening to music on Apple Music or Spotify, and also by joining us on Instagram and X, because that's the best way for you to get in touch with us in a much more personal basis. Sorry, speaking too fast. And also, if you want to support this channel even further, you can do it by subscribing, of course, leaving a comment, but liking and being part of our Discord, where we can keep the conversation going. With that being said, as every single time we meet you, we gotta remind you that you should never let anybody tell you what to dream about. And remember that we'll see you.